Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. I'm KP, Nick is here, and the attendance will be once more because today we're going to be going through our NXT recap from last night's edition of the weekly show. This is the 23rd of September edition, so we're going to break everything down, go through all of the action, see what happened, discuss it all, and yeah, we'll go with the flow. So first and foremost, we kick things off at the start of the night with a lights-out match. Lights on for NXT, but lights off in the arena for our opening contest. We would have Miles Bourne going one-on-one with Lexus King in this sort of like ever, progressive rivalry they've had, this little feud. And yeah, it would, for the most part, really leading up to this point, be in the favor of Miles Bourne. So this was an opportunity for him to sort of like continue with his sort of like good run of recently. Miles Bourne obviously, not quite getting all of everything in this one, with Lexus King winning the most recent gimmicky match in that blindfold match. So yeah, that was obviously quite interesting there. But yeah, the different side of the coin here, the lights are off, but they can still see each other and still work with the flow. Doesn't actually impact the match that much, but in terms of what they can do, an awful lot. They had weapons involved here. There was a whole lot going on. We had, like I say, in the picture there, we had the belt strap from Lexus King, which played a big part. And yeah, there were just carnage everywhere. We had steel steps in the ring, steel chairs. There's a lot going on. So it was a really fun match to kick things off. Probably a really good idea to start with this one because it got the crowd really into it. And just added a little bit of a unique little dynamic of just going crazy at the start of the night, which is always really fun. But Miles Bourne would get the victory in this one over Lexus King. It was a really fun match. It was competitive. It was back and forth. It was, highly contested. And I think just generally speaking, Miles Bourne getting the win is the right call here because he can sort of like, use this to go on to maybe like a different situation going forward. Maybe the North American Championship, depending on what that scene's going to be looking like very, very soon. Or, just basically just going on something a little bigger than what we've been having with Lexus King. But it's been a good feud. I've enjoyed it. I think this might be the end. But I've had a good time watching it. I think both men have really sort of shone from this one. Lexus King's character work's been tremendous. And I think, it just the stuff in the ring has also been really good between these two men. It's established Miles Bourne as a single star, winning his first feud as a singles competitor. So yeah, I think it's done both men really a good amount of progression going forward here. We go into our next match of the night then, and I say next match, our next segment, which had an impromptu match. This would be Ethan Page going into the ring, cutting a promo. He's in his suit, looking all suave and fancy, basically saying how there's a special guest here tonight, and that would be El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. at ringside. And he would basically talk about him, basically saying how, he's all well and good, but Ethan Page himself, he is the greatest North American ever. He would invite Wagner into to his match at No Mercy against Tavion Heights to be a spectator, see how things go along. And Page would there and then challenge Wagner to a match, in the ring, right, literally where he stood talking. Wagner would get into the ring and immediately would lock in a ankle lock. It's not the kind of move you would see from Wagner. For those that have watched the AAA events. That was quite a surprise. And then once Ethan Page immediately tapped, and the bell had rung, this was an officially sanctioned match, I guess we can say. Once the bell had rung, it was about 3 seconds later where it would actually ring again, because, Ethan Page would be tapping out to the ankle lock. So it was one of the weirdest, ways of producing a match and then quickly ending it that I've probably seen in a long, long time. So yeah, very interesting for sure. But once the match was over, Ethan Page struggling around in pain, holding his ankle. We get Wagner, who would remove his mask. It's not Wagner, it's Tavion Heights, and he would hold the North American Championship high above his head. Obviously celebrating a tap-out victory over Ethan Page. Takes that into No Mercy. That's going to be huge momentum for him. And it's going to be a bit of a slap to the face for Ethan Page and his ego. Moving on then, we would go into our next contest, which would see Lainey Reed go one-on-one with Candice LeRae in a Speed Championship qualifier. So the winner of this one would face off against Sol Ruka at No Mercy. So essentially a number one contenders match, this one. We would see Lainey Reed get the victory here over Candice LeRae. Pretty standard Speed match. It's high pace, it's quick. It does what it needs to do. It gets a contender for Sol Ruka's championship. I'm not the biggest fan of these matches, especially when someone from NXT beats someone from SmackDown in less than 3 minutes. I think that is a little bit of an underminement of Candice LeRae. I'm not particularly disappointed by the result. but I just think generally the concept just still is a little bit lost on me. Not the greatest fan of it. But regardless, Lainey Reed with the win. She advances to No Mercy, and a chance for her to win her first bit of singles gold. So I guess we see how that one plays out. But yeah, probably the right call, I would say. It's just, yeah, I don't know. The match, the concept still doesn't really strike me as one that works. And then into our last little bit of the first half of NXT, we would get Jordynne Grace and Ariana Grace having a match. So it was Grace versus Grace in this one. Yeah, came from a backstage segment earlier in the show, in the locker room as well. And Jordynne basically just saying how, you know what, we're both Graces, but I'd love to show you how different we really, really are. And this is an opportunity for them to do so. Jordynne would win in pretty quick fashion. It's probably about the same length as the speed match, I would say, maybe a little longer, but it didn't seem too much longer if it was that. But yeah, once Jordynne Grace got the victory, she's celebrating in the ring. She then has an appearance from Blake Monroe, who comes on down with a custom trash can and kendo stick. You know, looking pretty nice, to be fair, pretty fancy. And yeah, Jordynne Grace, she would grab a steel chair, and the two would start by just basically swinging the weapons at each other. It would be, you know, the kendo stick against steel chair. Ultimately, the steel chair comes up trumps in the end. And yeah, they then have a brawl, which is ultimately then separated by officials. We get Stevie Turner and Robert Stone, who are acting general manager for the night because Ava is away. I think she said she was in the homeland of Stevie Turner, so over in the UK doing something. I'm not entirely sure what that was about, but maybe you might know a little bit more about that, Nick. I have absolutely no clue. But yeah, over in the UK doing something. Not sure what, but regardless of the fact, Stevie Turner, Robert Stone, they come down to the ring, and they first and foremost, Stevie announces a weapons match for No Mercy between these two, but then Robert Stone sort of like one-ups her and says, chuck him inside a steel cage. So we're going to have a steel cage weapons match, weaponized steel cage, whatever you want to call it, kind of similar to what we've seen in the past with like the Ambrose Asylum and things like that. Probably something along those lines, I would say. But yeah, really cool match concept. Looking forward to seeing that one take place. These two have a really good feud, and it needs to have that sort of added element, that little extra on top. And I think that's a perfect way of doing things. So yeah, really looking forward to that. And yeah, we'll see how that progresses. But for now, Nick, our first half of NXT, obviously you've got the Lights Out match, and that what I think is the culmination of the feud. Do you think that's the same thing as well? Obviously, a big win for Miles Bourne. That crazy Ethan Page and Tavion Heights segment with the impromptu match. What did you make of that? That's quite interesting. Lainey Reed, number one contender for the Speed Championship. Do you think that she has a chance of beating Soruka? And then obviously, yeah, the development in Blake and Grace, the next addition in that story. What are we making of it all?
So I love that Vic and Booker, by the way, I think I hit on them quite often, but their dynamic is just so good. Probably my favorite duo right now in WWE. But mentioning that this was the third lights out match we'd seen in NXT history and the fourth we've seen in WWE history, and then noting that Booker T and The Rock had one, because I was sitting here thinking at the beginning of the match, have I ever seen a lights out match? I couldn't think of one, and I definitely don't remember a Booker T and Rock one. But regardless, I'm assuming they're telling us the truth. So yeah, this was interesting. Yeah, it definitely dark outside of the ring, but with the spotlights are still pretty bright, so light enough to still see each other. But yeah, tons of spots here, and Miles Bourne is been pretty dominant since going as a singles run, and I think just kind of has that feel to him right now that he's headed for big things quite soon. Not a knock towards Lexus King or anything, but his character work is great as well. But Miles Bourne just feels like he has that momentum on his side now. So be interesting to see where he heads next, if this is in fact the final bit. But yeah, a great start to NXT, and as you mentioned, a great way to get the fans involved to kick off the show. The Ethan Page segment, looking suave as ever. I absolutely agree with you there. And the El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. at ringside. I did not know it wasn't him until the mask got taken off, so they got me there. Yeah, I thought this was a pretty interesting segment. I thought obviously Ethan Page's promo was good, but then to have him tap out so quickly to that, a fun little segment, but kind of embarrassing for him. So we'll see how that one plays out. Especially, I think the embarrassing part for me is that he's the one that instigated, challenged him to the match anyways. So then to just not be prepared at all and kind of get taken advantage of like that so quickly and not have any fight in you whatsoever. I've said it before. I don't think Ethan Page is one that needs to win matches, but maybe not to that extreme lose them. So yeah, we'll wait and see. The stand home or stand tall curse. We'll see if that holds up for No Mercy. Yeah, and the speed matches, obviously, no, you're not a huge fan of them. I think I like them a tad better. I think it's just like the intensity, and you saw a couple times with Candice LeRae kind of slip up there. I think it certainly is. They feel the pressure having to kind of perform in such a quick manner. It's not the typical WWE style; is much slower. But with the lights kind of changing with the minutes passing by, I think they certainly feel the pressure. And for some reason, I just kind of get into that. I like the flow of the matches like that. Obviously, someone has to either surprise you in some way, form, shape, or another. And I feel like Laney Reed does just that, hitting that knee on Candice LeRae. And I think that is the correct decision as well. And I also just go a step further. I think she should take the title from Soul at No Mercy. And kind of as I mentioned before too, I think Laney has something special as well. And and I think I want Soul to focus on that North American title because that largely has been forgotten since she's held both of those belts. So further to that, I don't think Laney winning the Speed Championship will, rocket ship her career by any means. But I think it's a great start, and who knows, with that Speed title now becoming part of NXT, perhaps it could, become a bigger deal. So I think it certainly can't hurt. So we'll have to wait and see. And a nice Shang Tsung reference from Sol Ruka on her whiteboard as well. There, intentional or not, that was pretty funny. We now see the match setup earlier, and I got a good chuckle out of this too, by the way. The Grace versus Grace contest. Oof, that was a bit rough. But yeah, so Jordan wanting to prove that their last names, they are not related, of course, with Miss NXT herself, Ariana Grace. And as most would probably see coming, Jordan getting the win there. Not super shocking either, but Blake Monroe coming out afterwards with her glamorous weapons, if you will. Yeah, those two women go at it until they're stopped by officials. And I'm hoping that meant that we did get that payoff feud, or what I think should be a payoff feud between Jordan and Blake. And it does appear that it is where we're going. And then with the backup GMs, if you will. To answer your question, I'm not sure about Ava being in the UK. Honestly, I haven't heard anything about it, but I don't think it can mean anything bad. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see if we find out anything on that. As for Jordan and Blake, yeah, I'm looking forward to the match. I feel like their feud and rivalry has been a bit odd. It's been very heavy start stop, and I feel like maybe they pulled the trigger too quick on the Blake heel stuff. Maybe that's kind of the thing. I think part of it too is just you put these two guys, two women together who, neither of them should really be losing. Let's be honest. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they book that steel cage at No Mercy. But safe to say, I am looking forward to that, and looking forward to see how they potentially wrap up that feud. But yeah, really good action-packed first half NXT.
Yeah, very much action-packed, and didn't really slow down throughout the rest of the night. There's still a fair bit to talk about here as we go into our second half of NXT. And next up, we would have Jacy Jayne coming on down to the ring. Just before this, she would basically just say to Fallon and Jasmine how, she doesn't need anybody else to come down with her. She can handle Lola by herself. Fallon and Jasmine looking a little bit sort of perplexed about the decision there. But alas, Jacy would go down to the ring, as she said, by herself. And she'd basically want to pretend that last week didn't happen. All the homecoming events, Fatal Influence losing that main event match. And then Jacy Jayne, being the one to take the pinfall in the end, with Lola Vice being the one to basically allow that to happen. She reminds everyone that she's removed all labels that people have placed upon her, so like being a third wheel, a transitional champion, all that kind of stuff. And she finds it funny that the person who is supposedly going to take the title from her is Lola Vice, who she describes as a crossover act pretending to be a wrestler. JC says that although Lola has improved a lot, she's not ready to hold the NXT Women's Championship. And then she goes on to talk about No Mercy, basically saying that, it's in Lola's home, so her advantage sort of thing, before then claiming that she herself is actually the underdog in the story, not the challenger. She says how she hasn't shook her ass, but instead has fought hard to get to where she is, and that No Mercy, no one will ruin that for her. Lola then, coming on down, she'd had enough of what JC was saying. Basically goes on to say that, how she's far from surprised that another person is talking about her ass, before saying that at least she has one to shake. It's quite interesting that they're really sort of like playing on that particular part. She would highlight JC's impressive reign, the longevity so far being over 100 days, before referencing her toxic background, obviously referring to that of a past stable. Lola would look back to over a year ago, where she's faced Roxanne Perez for the NXT Women's Championship, before basically saying how different she is now. She's not the same person. She's more of a fighter, she's a professional wrestler, and she's now a WWE superstar. She says that she'll win the title for her family and culture, as well as the fans who have always had her back. She would go on to say how, she's going to knock out JC at No Mercy and take that title, before then JC would admit that Lola, she probably will beat her ass on Saturday, but would then say that, she knows her and her wantedness for validation, knows how much she wants it, but JC would confirm, saying that, Lola's reality is that actually, you're going to look your parents in the eyes after all this is said and done, and you're going to tell them that their sacrifices, they meant nothing. They were all for nothing in the end, because she's going to be the family's biggest disappointment. Lola's had enough at this point. She hits a spinning back fist, lays out JC Jane, and then she proceeds to hold the championship high up above her head to end the segment. So, quite, personal towards the end of that little segment there between these two ladies. And a lot going into this matchup. Sure, a lot rides on it. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But JC Jane consistently getting knocked on her back by Lola Vice. Not a good look. Will it transpire into No Mercy? We'll have to wait and see. Going into our next match then, our 3 versus 3 tag team contest. We would see Dark State taking on Chase U and Joe Hendry. So the monthly edition of Dark State having a big match tag team contest. But this time, their opponents all were on the same wavelength. Did it go well for their opponents this time? The answer is no. It did not. So Dark State will get the victory at the end here over Chase U and Joe Hendry. Ultimately, Chase U would take the pinfall here in this particular matchup. And this was pretty standard, to be fair. Everyone really had their moments here. It was opportunity just for everyone to really get involved and just do what they can. We had Andre Chase looking probably a bit more like the Chase of old, I would say, if I had to take anything from this one more than anything, really. So that was kind of nice, I guess, but obviously it is still a little bit more of like, just trying to sort of salvage something from the situation here. Still not entirely certain about the direction of Chase U. They don't really seem to have anywhere that they're going at the moment, but yeah, I don't know. I guess we wait and see. But another loss for them isn't exactly great. Joe Hendry making an appearance and being on the losing side, don't think that really does him any problems, to be honest. But we've seen a lot more on Joe Hendry recently in NXT. Is that a sign of things to come? I think it might be. It looks like it could be anyway. So that's quite interesting, I think, putting it that way. But yeah, win for Dark State. They continue their dominance. They're looking pretty good recently and not slowing down. Speaking of not slowing down, a massive main event. So, one-on-one match between Trick Williams, the TNA champion, and Obafemi, the NXT champion. Title versus title, winner takes all in this matchup. So, we saw a lot of stuff last week between the TNA superstars on social media saying how displeased they were about, this match being made and all the shenanigans that went on at Homecoming. They just weren't impressed, whatever. And they had a lot to say. So, was that going to play a part? Well, the answer is yes, because the match itself will be going fine. It will be going as you'd expect it. Two big guys, just trading back and forth. It was quite good, quite high pace as well. And definitely interested how this one was playing out. Gets to a point where, TNA superstars, they're all filtering around at ringside. They're all in the crowd. Appearance after appearance after appearance. We've got so many people coming on down now at this point. And Mike Santana, who is part of that group, he would eventually go on to commentary. And there would be a point where Trick Williams would be outside of the ring, and he would get up in the face of Mike Santana. Enough was enough in the end, though, because after a little bit of back and forth, they would start to raise their hands at each other, and that would provoke a disqualification. So Mike Santana laying his hand on Trick Williams. Then we would have all chaos ensue because the TNA superstars in attendance and here they would start brawling with with NXT talent. They would just completely crowd into the ring and they would completely go at it. So yeah, just complete lack of control at the end of the contest, at the end of the show, and it would end really with Ricky Saints and Obafemi, the two men who are obviously going to go to No Mercy now for the NXT Championship matchup. And they would have a little bit of a stare down over the NXT title just to end the show. Whilst all the chaos is erupting in and around behind them, to the side of them, whatever. Yeah, it was quite the chaotic scene. So yeah, kind of reminded me like a war, sort of like clip where like you just got this like central thing happening in the middle, and everything is just completely going crazy around them. So that's kind of what I took from it. But yeah, it was a crazy end to the show, quite fun, and yeah, that ending being a DQ. I don't particularly like DQ finishes, but this one made a lot of sense. This one was needed because we did not need a double champion, so I'm glad it happened. So yeah, job done, very very good. We don't have to go down that route again. But yeah, Nick, what did you make of it all? JC and Lola just upping the intensity there between them two. Dark State looking strong as they have been for a while now. And yeah, that crazy main event, Ober and Trick getting that DQ finish, then into the crazy chaos at the end. It's a big old NXT.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair description of this one. And I'm not sure if it occurred exactly before this, but I know it occurred at some, just including with the women's segment here. We did get a Jada Parker promo basically saying that she wasn't done with Lash Legend. Very much kind of what we thought based on their last match with Lash getting the win and then Jada kind of attacking her afterwards. So was kind of hoping they would maybe do that at No Mercy, but regardless, we will be in that match down the line. But as for the woman here pictured, JC Jane and Lola Vice, before the match, she tells Fallon and Jasmine that she can handle this by herself. Would those words come back to Hunter? Yeah, it kind of seemed like they did. And as you kind of went over the actual promo, I think Lola is standing tall here, striking JC again, who has been on her back a lot recently. So. I don't know. I think her title might be in jeopardy here, but we'll get into that a little more on our NXT No Mercy predictions tomorrow. But yeah, I think this is a good enough segment. I think JC's still trying to play the underdog card. I think only works so long. You being champion for 100 days, maybe not working as well as it used to. But as JC attested to, Lola, all things have been kind of coming up Lola lately. So should be an interesting discussion tomorrow on that predictions video. And after the match, it wasn't exactly after this segment, but it involves JC Jane as well. Devon Evans is being interviewed on his match over the weekend or for the upcoming weekend with Josh Briggs. And the gist of that is, he's going to win this time. So nothing special there. But worth noting, during the interview, they hear a crash kind of in the backstage area. And they played off like nothing happened, continue the interview. But then after the interview, we go over there and we see Jasmine Nix was knocked out, presumably by TNA talent, but we don't know yet. Maybe we'll find out later. But then JC and Fallon are quickly at the side of Jasmine, showing very little care in the world. And JC basically, he kind of says it was overdue and only the strong survive, I believe were her words. Regardless, the main takeaway there is couldn't care less. And yeah, kind of more teasing of that faction maybe being on its last leg or at least not being in full. I wish Lola wouldn't have brought up the toxic attraction, because I'm kidding you not that it wasn't that long ago that I finally were able to get those two teams straight. We now have Fatal Influence, not Toxic Attraction. So guaranteed over the next couple weeks, I will drop Toxic Attraction at least once when we're talking about that stable. The Dark State, yeah, the monthly tag match with them. Yeah, I thought this was a pretty fun contest, albeit maybe a bit too contested by Chase Yu, who you kind of mentioned have not been firing on all cylinders. But regardless, Dark State getting the win here, I think obviously the right call. And maybe Kel Dixon, Uriah Connors kind of have what it to reunite Chase U. But yeah, as you also mentioned, it kind of seems like they're struggling with direction there. But Dark State continuing their hot trend and being pretty dominant faction, which I think is the right call. Yeah, that main event too was chaotic. It felt like the writing was definitely on the wall. Obviously, Ava being gone, allowing all this TNA talent to just walk up there and kind of do the things that they had planning on doing. And obviously, it was definitely Booker was selling that pretty well from Santana. That he had this look in his eyes, so he just knew it was going to happen. Just a matter of how long were they going to let the match go. And honestly, it was longer than I thought it would be. So yeah, this clearly setting up the big events, this TNA NXT battle. It's going to take place, apparently, at least that seems apparent at this point, just a matter of when. But yeah, chaos ensues, the brawl ensues, and yeah, Oba and Trick seem to be, or excuse me, Oba and Ricky appeared to be the only two that were still focused on that grand prize as the show came to an end. But yeah, pure chaos. I'm all for this TNA NXT storyline. I think it kind of makes sense to slap it on Survivor Series, but we got a bit of time to go for that. So yeah, I'm not sure when we'll get that, but we'll have to wait and see, I guess. But yeah, overall, great NXT, especially for a go home episode, and not only building tension for No Mercy, but also that tension for that NXT TNA feud. That whenever we do end up getting that, so yeah, I had a ton of fun with this episode, and I gave it a 9 out of 10. Yeah, looking forward to NXT No Mercy as well.
Looks like we're matching. I also gave this one a 9 out of 10. I'm glad you brought up the Jasmine Nix situation backstage, because it was just hilarious to see the lack of care from both JC and Fallon over that situation. So yeah, kind of interesting. I've already got my theories as to what's happened there. So that'll be quite interesting to discuss going forward. But yeah, the TNA NXT story, I'm really into this. I'm really keen to see where this one does go. And yeah, it's got me hooked and keen to see what the hell is going to be coming up next. So yeah, let's just see what happens, I guess, next week. Maybe No Mercy, possibly even get little bits coming into that. I don't know. But yeah, I'm seated. I'm ready to go. But for now, everybody, this has been our recap of NXT for this week. Thank you everyone for tuning on in. If you like the video, then please let us know in the comments what you think, whether good, bad, whatever. We'd love to hear your thoughts on everything and anything. Yeah, if you like the video, then please hit a like and subscribe to our channel to keep up with future releases. We've still got loads of stuff coming up this week, and it's never ending at the moment. It's a lot going on, but we're having a great time. We're just getting all the content out there and just really going for it. So it's been a bit of a blast. But for now, everyone, this has been The Push with Nick and KP. We'll see you all again soon. See you next time, and take care.